I'm going to also discuss on how some people might have a little bit confusion in understanding who has the power and who does not have such powers and so on. And finally, I'm going to look into, so what do we do where there are these abuses of political power? Then what do we do? Okay, without further ado, for the first slide. So introduction. Okay, these are the main actors when you look into the issue regarding legal enforcement in Malaysia. You have PDRM. This stands. This is an acronym: Polis Diraja Malaysia, the police force, and SPRM, Suruhanjaya Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia, SPRM. I'm sure Indonesia, you have something similar to this. I think KPK, I think KPK,
Yes,
is it?
right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. What happened to that guy who was blinded by someone? Was it Anis Bawidan? No. The brother of Anis Bawidan, I think. The culprit has not been arrested even until today. Okay, yeah. But okay, anyway, these are the two bodies which entrusted in legal enforcement issues in Malaysia: the police and SPRM. Obviously, there are laws which protect, which allow these people to do their work, their scope of job, whether they have any discretionary powers and so on, and all of these are protected under the law. And obviously, these are government servants. These are public servants. And as of right, public servants will hold powers on trust. I mean, meaning to say, if you're a police officer in Malaysia, you do not have absolute ownership over their position. You are holding that power on trust because you are an employee of the Malaysian government, and your loyalty towards the Yang Dipertuan Agong, the king. But of course, in the context of being a public servant in Malaysia, the Yang Dipertuan Agong does not really have powers to control what you can or cannot do, because the Yang Dipertuan Agong is only the constitutional monarch. He does not have real powers. Any decisions of the day, these are made by the government of the day, who have been who have been elected by the people through the national elections. So basically, I think in across the board in any of the countries, you will be dealing with this PRM and any mechanism which looks into the problems of corruption in Malaysia. There are some very, very nice literature on rasuah, on corruption, in both in Malaysia and Indonesia, because they look into the psyche of the people as to why, for some people, corruption is accepted as well. Some people do not find there's anything wrong with corruption. And I find that very interesting, because it looks into some kind of similarities between how, presumably how some Malaysians look at corruption, and to how some Indonesians look at corruption. Okay, so basically, we do have legal protection and immunity to all of these people. You cannot interfere whenever they're doing their jobs. You cannot stop them from investing against you, and they have very wide powers to institute any kind of legal action against you. For example, detaining you, charging you, and so on. Okay. Like any government bodies, the problems that people have against all of these legal mechanisms will be, what powers do they have, number one, and number two, who is the watchdog to ensure that these people would act within the law? Because if the law says they cannot do this, we have to make sure that they cannot do this. So what is the mechanism? What is the body to monitor their actions? So currently that is kind of lacking in Malaysia, because we do not have any kind of independent body to oversee the workings of the police and any of these legal enforcement bodies. Okay, second slide. So how do these people work? So if you have a problem, for example, if you have suspicion, for example, if you have a complaint, in most cases, you are a victim. You will then lodge a police report with the police, and this is called the first information report. This is very much similar. This FIR term is also used in most Commonwealth countries, for example, in India, Pakistan, and Australia. So firstly, things will be started with a report. You go to the police station, you meet any of the police officer who is on duty in that station, you lodge a report. You fill in a form saying, so what are your complaints, against whom, what is issue, what you have suffered, any damages that you have suffered, and so on. Okay. So many people assume, and of course, many people expect that these legal enforcement bodies will start to investigate after you've lodged your after you've lodged your FIR. And that comes naturally, of course, because what's the point of lodging a report with them if no action is taken against any of your report? Unfortunately, under the law, we do not have any legal provisions to say that after a report has been made, the police must investigate, and if the police does not investigate, this will be this is a penalty to the police, or this is a penalty to the SPRM. Currently, we don't have any of those provisions. So this is where some people have this uneasiness with the legal enforcement bodies because who decides whether investigations should be carried out? Who decides whether the scale of investigation to be carried out, the manpower involved in all of this? It is not us, it is not the complainant, it is not the victim, it is them. So this is where the problem lies. So if the investigation were to proceed, that's fine. Everyone is happy, I guess. If action is taken against the perpetrator, again, that's a good thing because, yeah, I mean, justice will be ensured. But number three, what if the investigation will then stand with no further action, or NFA? Then what do you do? And then we also have to remember, in the context of Malaysia, public bodies are also protected under the Official Secrets Act. Any of their documents which are stamped confidential, you have no right, you have no recourse, you have no legal avenue to get access to these documents. So maybe you want to find out, for example, in a hypothetical case, you've lodged a police report, and then somehow at the end of the line, the police decided, no, we do not need to take further action in this, and that's it. We're just going to close the case, for example, so to speak. So what do you do? Could you just go to go, I demand to know what were the real reasons. I want to look into the investigation papers. I want to know how did they come up with this decision to stop any investigations taken in my case. You can't, you have no right to it as long as they have designated their papers as confidential or rahsia rasmi. That's it. So again, herein lies the dissatisfaction that people have. Then what's the point? These are what people will popularly see as, this is abuse of power. But again, to put a limit to this speculation on abuse of power, I don't really know what really happens in a police department. I don't really know what really happens in SPRM, in the anti-corruption bodies, because they have their own workings. They also have their own priorities to begin with. So again, as government departments which are involved in legal enforcement, I'm sure these people will have their own. I really do not like to use the word prerogatives, but I'm sure they have their own, for example, standard operating procedures. What are the directives that come from above? What are the cases which are in their priorities list? I'm sure they have that. So it is beyond me to question the relevance of their standard operating procedures and so on. However, we have to also acknowledge the fact that these legal enforcement bodies are made out of people. And these organizations are also headed by people, human beings. So we also have to look into the reasons, the rationale for the action or inaction against any of them. Because there is one thing that is confirmed in our legal studies, or in a political study for that matter, not just in Indonesia, but also throughout the world. You cannot run away from politics. Government departments will always be about politics. decisions made by government bodies, including any of these legal enforcement bodies, will always have something to do with politics. So it is just a matter of, could you justify those actions under the law? So that has always been the issue. So again, then the dissatisfaction under here is always, oh, can you use law to give immunity to action and so on? The law should be neutral and so on. Okay, I'm going to address this later, because a lot of people assume that law is neutral. Well, the law is not neutral. The law has always been used as a tool by state power. And of course, there's another area of study which says law is always state violence, because the state has monopoly over violence. Okay, so roughly, these are the legal enforcement mechanisms. So here, if you're unhappy with any decisions made by any of these enforcement bodies, so what do? What are your remedies, so to speak? So obviously people will say, you can just sue them in court. In first year law studies in all universities, this is a perception that we deal with our students, that to file a case is not that very easy to file a case, because it takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes a lot of willpower. It also takes a toll on your emotional health to begin with. So it's not easy for you to say, just file a case and that's it. No, I mean, that doesn't work. In reality, it doesn't work. In certain societies, for example, it is only to file a case, to fight a case against the establishment, to fight a case against establishment and places of power. That is a kind of privilege that not many people have and not many people enjoy. And then of course it's time consuming and money, for example. So what do you do? So do you want to lodge a police report? Meaning to say, after you've lodged the first police report, the FIR, nothing happened. So could you lodge a second police report as a follow-up? Then technically you could, but then what's the point? Because because the message is very clear, if nothing happens because of the first report, then what's the point of coming up with the second report? But on the other hand, people will say, well, maybe they're busy and so on, maybe they're tied up with so on, there's so many cases and so on. So, you're just trying to highlight them that, look, you also have a complaint before, and your complaint has not been satisfactorily dealt with. So yeah, fine, maybe lodge a second police report. Next, what about a complaint to integrity units? Like for example, UITM, this our own university, it has its own integrity unit. And of course, the function of integrity units is to combat against any acts, any cases which lack of integrity. Well, so far, so good, because in establishing integrity units, the Malaysian government has given a message that they're taking questions or problems of integrity very seriously. Unfortunately, there is no law to say that integrity unit must do all in their powers to combat against cases which lack of integrity, because integrity units also exist as government departments, and they do not have to answer to the government or the people of this country. The only people that they have to answer will be their bosses. So for example, the integrity unit in UITM, it has to answer to the vice chancellor, the high ups of the university. It does not need to answer to the real complaints by, for example, staff of UITM or even taxpayers of Malaysia who have paid their taxes to be used to subsidize the running of UITM. So therein lies, there is no legal mechanism to compel an integrity unit to be transparent and accountability, because they're just a government department which acts upon the directives of their bosses. Again, next, you have a complaint, you could lodge a complaint with the Public Complaints Bureau or Biro Pengaduan Guaman if you're not happy with any government departments or any decisions made against them. Same thing with integrity, there is no effective legal mechanism to address all of this. Reports given to Public Complaints Bureau, for example, there is no law to say that they must table their findings in Parliament. So usually what happens if you lodge a complaint with the Public Complaints Bureau, for example, maybe you're not happy with UITM, or maybe you're not happy with the Vice Chancellor, for example. So the first thing, the Public Complaints Bureau, because this is a body under the Prime Minister's Department, which presumably takes it very seriously to look into cases regarding public bodies. Public Complaints Bureau first course of action is to write a letter to UiTM asking UiTM for feedback. So there has been a complaint against your Vice Chancellor, for example, or your previous Vice Chancellor, for example. What's your feedback on this? There is no guarantee that the feedback given by UiTM will be correct, will be 100% truthful. In fact, UiTM could even defend itself by giving some other kind of explanation and stamping it under confidentiality, which is also protected under Official Secrets Act. So there it goes. It is toothless, for example. But I understand from the present government, because they're very serious in this, they're going to pass a law regarding public ombudsman, where complaints of the public will be taken seriously under the new law. As it stands right now, I do not know the content of the new Ombudsman Act to be passed by Parliament, but I know from newspaper reports that efforts have been there to present this bill later on. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of positive feedback from government. But at the end of the day, again, what do you do if you're unhappy with decisions made of the government by any of these government bodies, by any of these legal enforcement mechanisms? That's it. You could lodge a police warrant. Same thing. You could go to the ministry, you could go to the parliamentary select committee and so on. Nothing. I know for a fact there was one government servant who was transferred to Sarawak a few years ago. She was very lucky because during that time there was a parliamentary select committee on integrity. So she went to Parliament, she presented a case, and Parliamentary Select Committee found it. Yeah, there was enough evidence to say that when that person was transferred to Sarawak, it was victimization against her. So yeah, and the Parliamentary Select Committee Integrity gave an order to that government department to bring back that particular stuff back to wherever her original place. But that was it. These were just small isolated cases which when we read, we say, hey, hooray, rights of the victims are now being protected. But that was it. Because there is no effective mechanism to say that it does not happen, even to punish all of these culprits who've been involved in cases of abuses of power. So next, these are protections for the legal enforcement bodies. Yep, some of the powers are given under the Penal Code. Some of the powers are also given. Sedition Act gives a blanket a protection to all of these people. For example, this could be clearly seen in the case of Lim Guan Eng against public prosecutor. Lim Guan Eng alleged that public prosecution in Malaysia a long time ago was unfair because this was regarding an alleged statutory rape, which Lim Guan Eng alleged that the victim, who was a minor during that time, was detained, and the perpetrator was let go, and there was no action against him. It became a huge case, and using the provision under the Sedition Act, Lim Guan Eng was found guilty, and he was incarcerated. He was imprisoned. So this gives a seriousness to this issue, that you can't just simply allege that any of these legal enforcement bodies are corrupt, are inefficient. Because when you touch upon all of this, then you'll get in trouble because of the Sedition Act. Then where do you go to? Of course, at the moment, how the court has been treating Sedition Act, for example, in the latest decision of Azerbaijan, is far from satisfactory, because you could see that there was an inconsistency in that decision. But Sedition Act is still law in Malaysia for whatever reasons that it might be. Okay, next. So you want to complain regarding abuse of power and so on. Who are you? That's the first thing that people ask. Who are you? Who do you think you are? Kamu ingat kamu siapa nak complain? For example, that's the thing that they will ask. And again, here is that who has the power? So again, these are several versions of who has the power. For example, under Hobbes' Leviathan, the book of Leviathan, it is very a restrictive view. For example, before you join this state, you live in a state of nature where survival is always the order of the day. You will kill someone else, and other people are waiting to kill you continuously. So when you join the state, you have to follow all the laws made by the state. You cannot question any of them, and in exchange with that, you'll get protection from the state. And so Hobbes' idea was, you have no power, you have no recourse, you have no right. You just do whatever the state tells you to do. However, when they locate the two utilities of government, no, just because you're in the government, it does not mean that you have absolute power. You are holding power on trust for the benefit of the people. Whatever you do, you must get the consent of the government. So this kind of 180 degrees terbalik from Hobbes, saying that the government does not have absolute power. Whatever you do, you have to be accountable to the people. Okay, under social contract, again, this is where majority, you enter into a state and into a kind of community, you have to follow the rules of the community, the society. So again, this then reflects that if you say that the powers of this legal enforcement bodies cannot be questioned, is that opinion shared by majority of the society? That's the whole question. Next, when you look into the psyche of the Malays, for example, there are some really weird people out here trying to say that, look into the history, the Malays have always bowed down, the Malays have always have this idea of unquestioning loyalty to the state, to the Raja, which then isn't translatable to you have unquestioning loyalty to the government today. Again, there's something wrong here because Suratul Salatin is just a work of fiction. You cannot prove that any of the things written in Suratul Salatin was actually true. It did happen. For example, no one could actually prove the existence of Putri Gunung Ledang anyway. But Suratul Salatin has been used time and again to say that you cannot go against the state. Whatever complaints that you have against the state, no, it's not valid. You have to do anything that the state says. You have to be grateful. Okay, but at the end of the day, you also have Tajul Salatin, and this is written by one Imam, one ulama from Aceh, saying that just because you are the Sultan, it does not mean that you have absolute powers. This is again 180 degrees terbalik from Suratul Salatin, that anyone holding the powers, holding positions of authority, for example, you cannot claim that you can do anything. Whatever powers that you have, you are holding them on trust for the people, for example, and you have to be a good person. So now all of this, you have a mixture of this. Which one do we follow? Well, this is a problem because some people will say, we follow Hobbes. Some people will say, but that's the Western point of view and it's restrictive. Why can't you follow Locke? And then people will say, why are you following the Western philosophers? Why can't you follow Suratul Salatin? But again, if you're to follow Suratul Salatin, then you're going back to the feudalism. And this is again, that if you do anything that the state tells you to do, if you say that you have no rights whatsoever against the state, that's kind of a feudalistic mindset, which there are some people in Malaysia are happy to see this continuing, even in public universities. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not really surprised at all. So next, so we have this idea, is the law neutral? Are legal enforcement bodies neutral? Again, in jurisprudence class, in legal theory or falsafah undang-undang, we teach the students the law is not neutral. The law will always be protecting certain interests. The law will always have certain purposes. So you cannot assume that the purpose of, you cannot assume that the law is always concerned in protecting the interests of the people, because the law is always made up by politicians. And for politicians, the most important thing is their own political power and their influence. So the law is not neutral. And when you look into, for example, a Marxist jurisprudence, the law has always been used as a tool to protect and to entrench the interests of those in political power, the wealthy elites, for example, the political elites, for example. So no, the law is not neutral. There is always some kind of interest behind that law. And are legal enforcement bodies neutral? So this is why we look into Max Weber. Under Weber, state will have a monopoly of violence, which is why you cannot balas dendam. You cannot take revenge on whatever happened to you. You have to allow the state to take revenge on your behalf. So this is why you cannot just go and wrestle. Of course, in certain situations you could, where the crimes are really heinous in Malaysia under the Criminal Procedure Code. But most of the time, you can't just hit out at people. You can't assault people just because you have some kind of grievance against them. You have to let the state do that on your behalf. So are legal enforcement bodies? No, they're not. Because when the state has a monopoly on violence, and the state consists of politicians, where politicians will determine what is the legal order, what is the social order, what is the economic order, which everyone has to follow in this society, then obviously the legal enforcement bodies will fit in the whole structure, which is decided and determined by these politicians. So no, they are not neutral. Okay, but while I'm saying that they're not neutral, it is far be it for me to question any of their actions because I really don't know what's happening in their standard operating procedure. So next, so what is the way out? Again, what happens because when you look into Malaysia and Indonesia, for example, we are democratic countries. In both our countries, if you want to be in positions of power, you need to be elected by the people. Okay, but the problem with democracy right now, and this has been written a long time ago by John Stuart Mill, he called this a case of tyranny of the majority, tyranny by the majority. That just because we have elected you in every 5 years, it doesn't mean on the day of the elections, we also surrender our reasoning capacity to you. No, we are not. We do not surrender our reasoning capacity to you the moment we elect you on elections day. Whatever power that you have, you are holding it on trust for whose benefit? For our benefit. And again, when you look into from the perspective of Islam, it's even more serious because in Islam, when you look into the question of sovereignty, human beings and whichever positions of absolute power that you don't have absolute power. You don't have absolute sovereignty. You can't do all of this on your own. Whatever power that you have, that is also held on trust. So this is why John Sulman said, questioned a long time ago, why are people so got up with this idea of democracy? Next, in Habermas, we learn about legitimation crisis. Again, this is something which I think is very relevant. Okay, this is something which I believe is relevant because in legitimation crisis, for example, where corruption happens or where cases of abuses of power exist, we assume that those in power, the government, for example, will always try to settle these issues. That comes as a knee-jerk reaction to them. Okay, kerajaan akan settle. I mean, the state will of course do something to settle all of these problems. But the state, the government consists of politicians, and if it is in the interest of the politicians to allow such abuses to continue, obviously they will never be interested to solve it in the first place. So what was this proposal by Habermas? Under legitimation crisis is what? It's good. You go back and participate in democracy. You voice out. If you're not happy, you voice out. And you have all of these public display of protestations against the government. Again, when you try to look into Malaysia, for example, we've been trying, Malaysians have been trying to do that. For example, one of the stuff that we look at in Malaysia has always been, for example, the Bersih movement, which calls for problems under the electoral process and elections to be taken care of, to be settled. For example, I mean, in the petition of Yong Tek Lee, there was a case in the elections in court in the state of Sabah that was decided in 2001. When the elections court formally found that, yeah, there were problems of phantom voters in the electoral list in Likas, ada masalah pengundian tu. The court found that as a fact. So in 2001, for example, so it wasn't just a propaganda, pembangkang. It's no, the court found it as a fact. It's recorded in the judgment. So whatever happened after that, the government passed a law on elections laws to say that the moment the electoral list has been certified by those in authority, it could not be questioned. So instead of cleaning it up, you are saying after we've done this, you cannot question the list. So that was one of the reasons is why Bersih went up the town and say, oh no, this is not happy. You have to listen to our demands and so on. Yeah, so that was a form of legitimation crisis.
There is 3 minutes more.
Okay, yeah, I'm about to finish. Next, post-colonial constitutionalism. Look, all of us have been under the yoke of Western colonialism, and under the laws of Western colonialism, we know that we did not have any rights. We know that we could not question any of the abuses of power. That was what happened then. So surely the moment we achieve our independence, we became independent from these colonial powers, we have to do something, and we have to ensure that our systems are not very much like any of those systems under colonial power. And this is where we say never again we will tolerate any kind of abuses of power. So this must be in the mindset, and for example, in everyone, either universities and schools or government servants, for example. So next, on the question of hegemony, any question of state power, whether they could get away with cases of abuse of power, not only because they have the enjoyment of restricted laws which protect their interests, but hegemony, according to Gramsci, is where the people actually allow them to get away with it. So no, don't allow them to get away with it. Do something about it. And that was also the message in Banality of Evil under Hannah Arendt, where people in Germany could not say that they were innocent. No, you actually stood around and did nothing when your neighbors were bashed up and brutalized by the Nazi party. So you had to do something. And again, under weapons of the week, this has always been the excuse in so many lectures. Oh, we are powerless, we're nobody in this system, we have just to follow the orders and so on. Well, weapons of the week under Professor James Scott only talked about subaltern, people who are weak, why they have no political power. Surely that's not us. We are lecturers and we are government servants. Surely we are not subaltern. Surely we are not weak. Surely we are not people who do not have political power. So yeah, there's kind of mobilization which should take place. And this is where we start. And this is the proposal I'm taking. Where there any abuses power, do something about it. Don't just let the state do. What about people's participation? Thank you. Thank you for your patience listening to my rambling. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wow, very interesting sharing, and I look right now, not just only the speaker, but the anchor from the TV3. Keren. Okay, very clear.
This meeting is being recorded.
Very clear with the red and white color.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity that given to me to be speaker on this Asian lecturer community. So, today I would like to present about the law enforcement and political power abuses in Indonesia. So, before we start to talking about the power abuse in Indonesia, my PowerPoint is not working. Okay, so before we start talking about the political power abuse in Indonesia, first I would like to make a definition about what is a power. So, what is a power? A power is generally interpreted as an authority that is already owned by an individual or group to carry out something, whether it is mandatory or just a right. And therefore, a power is only an understanding if it's not applied. So today, talking about power is not only found in one sector, but is found in many sectors, such as the political sector, the economic sector, environmental sector, and the others. And the next, after we know the definition about the power, there are a lot of theory about the power, but I will take one about the theory of power. So basically, the power can be interpreted as an ability possessed by individuals or groups to influence others. Therefore, those in power can be said to have a big responsibility because they not only have an impact on someone, but can also have an impact on the environment. In addition, the influence exerted by the power holder can be based on his desire or shared interests. The power itself can come from personal position or from lineage. In this case, a personal position can be obtained when serving in an organization or institution where a person serves as chairman. When serving as a chairman, you should think about how to advance an organization or institution. Therefore, a chairman or a power holder must have broad insight so that he can find various ways so that the organization or institution he leads can develop. And meanwhile, a power obtained through lineage usually occurs in the descendants of kings. We can see the power like this in this country that adhere to a royal system of government. For example, at Brunei Darussalam as a member of ASEAN too. And therefore, every decision of the king's power will affect the condition and welfare of the people. And the next, after we know about the theory of power, so the next question is, why do people seek a power? Why do people seek a power? By having that power, concerned has the freedom to do something he wants. So this is we know that we have to know what he wants. So because by having that power, concerned has the freedom to do something he wants. To have a power means to have ability to change behavior on the attitude of others according to what desired by the holder power. By holding power, then automatically that authority has influence, and this is what dreams of some peoples want to get the power. So that later he have the power of influence which are owned. In the other words, he has the right to rules and the right to organize or manage up the rights to make a decision. Important and because in part people think that if all three of these things can be obtained, then someone managed to run and have a career. The desire converted by some. To some of them, they realize that when he gets the power, if not be careful, such thing will be endanger himself and even his family. So the next, after we know about what is the power and why do the people seek a power, no, because people think that a power is really important for them. So, and not just a few people do the abuse of power, especially in Indonesia. So, but before we talking about the Indonesian case about the abuse of power, the first I would like to explain about what is abuse of power. Abuse of power is currently becoming trending topics both in the mass media, print, and electronic media. Abuse of power is an action taken by a person or public official or authorities with agenda or particular interests, both for individual interests as well group or corporate interests. In the action that can be detrimental national finance or economy, then the action can be considered as an act of corruption. Term mentioned that power is close to corruption. That power uncontrollable will become increasingly arbitrary and the end lead to deviation. More the bigger to the power, the bigger it is possibility of corruption. The authority granted us the means to carry out the task, the sin as a personal power, because it can be used for the personal interest. As a result, officials who occupy an important position in a state institution will have the rights to use power assigned to him freely. The higher the rank, the greater the authority. And in a stage which society is weak for the being poor, legally blind administration, corruption goes like the wind passes. Government in a country is an internal component formation of a good state. Good government will come if there is a synergy between the private sector, the people, and the government in this case, as the facilitator who carry out the responsibilities, Java with transparent, participatory, accountability, and democratic. And based on a lot of the mass media and also the media electronic, who is the majority of the abuse of a power in Indonesia? So, based on my research, in Indonesia, the majority of the abuse power is did by a public official. So, the public official are people entrusted to appointed and assigned to occupy a position or position certain public bodies. Official in the public is empowered and trust because it is considered as a part of democracy, and nothing democratic government without there is a responsibility to the people. So, do you want to know who the public official, who the public official in Indonesia who did the abuse of power? So, I will give you the 10 example in start from like more than 2017 until right now. So there are 10 cases about the abuse of authority in Indonesia. So I will make it quick. The first, the cases of abuse of authority. Former presidential special staff millennial in April 16, 2022. The President Joko Widodo millennial special staff Widodo, Andi Taufan will be reported to Barreskrim Police Headquarters. Andi reported above allegation of abuse the power regarding the content of the Secretariat letterhead, the Cabinet Acts, the Chairman to involve PT Amarta Microfintech in halting COVID-19. This report was made by Soleh. Soleh has at its Periskim Mabes Polri to report suspected cases and abuse to the authority, and the Taufan did it. And the second case is cases of abuse of authority power of the main director of Garuda private private corporation Indonesia on December 17, 2019. The main director of PT Garuda Indonesia, Igusti Ngurah, is removed by the Ministry of SUA, Erick Thohir. Ankara was removed because of the smuggling of auto parts. Harley Davidson are also two luxury bikes from Tom. The item was smuggled of an Airbus aircraft who flew first from France to Indonesia. And the third case is Project Corruption Crime Island, Outer Ring Road Improvement, Bengkalis on 3 September 2021. The Corruption Eradication Commission arrested 3 suspects in connection with the allegation on multi-year project improvement Bengkalis Island Ring Road. And the fourth, the procurement, corruption, crime, goods and services in Pemkat Banjarnegara, and Corruption Eradication Commission stipulated that Banjarnegara region, period 5 period, and KL private as a subject as the alleged crime, goods, procurement, corruption, crime, and services in district government. And the next, abuse of prosecutor authority and Manado State Attorney General. And beginning, the first thing that happened was in March 2019 when the Environment Service, the Manado City government needs chose the general was incinerator of machine incinerator as much as 4 units worth 9.8 billion and 1 unit a burner medical was worth in 990 million just requested for APBD budget City of Manado fiscal year 2019. And the next is Aid Fund Corruption Crime Social COVID-19 in Jabodetabek in 2021. And then there are 4 cases again. Procurement Corruption Crime Consultancy Service Work in Public Corporation Jasa Tirta. And then Bener of Seed Export Brewery Case Lobster done by ex-Minister of Maritime Affairs and Fisher Edi Prabowo in 2020, and Runway Development Corruption Case Muhammad Airport Runway. And the last is about the PDAM is about the Water Corporation and Basement Case East Kalimantan by the main director in East Kalimantan in April 2021. So based on this is only the 10 cases that public in mass media or also in electronic media. So there are still a lot of abuse power in Indonesia that did not public in the media. So based on that, the reality about the 10 case about the abuse power. So I made the conclusion about the causes of abuse of power in Indonesia. The first is about uncontrollable power. Many public officials who cannot resist the desire to own everything, including power. And the second, having the view that people who has the authority to act free. The public official or reader assume that and official public or leaders have position will be free to act as they please or have unlimited authority or free. And the third, a weak law enforcement against behavior of abuse of authority. The many phenomenon that the people is normal to make small mistakes. The punishment is severe and long. Will but if public official or leader, although his mistake was fatal, his punishment light. Law in Indonesia tend to sort down, blunt up. And the third is weak moral and mentality. Someone who is given authority or high position but have bad moral, such as corruption, abuse of power or position, will not be able to assume trustworthy and perform duties accordingly authority. And the fifth, economic demands. The higher the ranks, usually life needs and so also increase it. Spending a large spec than poor research in official can abuse their authority to reap the material gains for self. And the last one is about the supervision is weak. The lack of oversight from above and related parties, for example, a budget oversight. So based on my presentation about the law enforcement and the power of abuse in Indonesia, therefore, I suggest to the government that the first we have our government have to do the review punishment given to those who do the abuse of power detrimental to the state. So there is an effect felt deterrent. And the second, inspection against LPG. LPG is about the responsibility report conducted by each agency must be carried out the data line, so their gaps, spaces who want to commit abuse power can be minimized. And the third, reducing political costs before serve as a public official or representative of a people. So there is no sense to return the money that has been used in the political costs before serve. And the last, strengthen check system and balance in government system so they can control each other, give a warning against committed violation. Thank you for listening me. Thank
Wow.
you and Professor Rizal. Thank you so much.
Wow. I think this is the Putri Aryani, another from Esa Unggul, right? I think it's another Putri Aryani from Esa Unggul right now, but not the song, but the speaker.
Thank you,
Okay. Okay, we go to question answer right now. But after the answer, I will to invite Mr. Willie, Mr. Henrico, Mr. Ikma from UITM, Dr. Suaida after the question answer right now. And Nazim, there is some question in my email direct right now, but usually I chose only two person or two question for every speaker. I will to read the question for the first speaker first, for Dr. Nazim, from Andy and Anton. This is A and A, right? Okay, I read the question in my iPad right now. Very interesting sharing, Dr. Nazim. You are look as the presenter in television Malaysia. Okay lah. Okay, there is the question. There is observer said that Malaysia political atmosphere right now not very stability yet because government coalition are not by single majority like a long time ago. Is it true condition, Mr. Nazim? Is the impact regard good government policy for investor coming to Malaysia? This is the first question from Andy. And then the second question from Anton. Former Prime Minister Najib Razak is the first and high political level person or prime minister in jail by law. We look, there is a progressive of law enforcement in Malaysia. Is this condition will be long term or only short policy? This is the very repeat the question. is I think the second of former Prime Minister Najib Razak is the first and high political level person or Prime Minister right now in jail by law. We look, there is progressive of law enforcement in Malaysia. Is it this condition will be long term or only short policy? This is the question.
Okay.
But before you answer, I will to read for the second speaker from ND. Dr. Nin Yasmin is very good sharing. Thank you very much. I get new experience from your presentation. Okay. Andy, right now in Indonesia, Miss Yasmin, Nin Yasmin, are you copy me, right? Hello? Ibu means Nin Yasmin. I want to check first. This is okay, not okay. I look is Bu Yasmin, are you listen me? Are you copy me? Macam tak ada respon ni, dia punya masalah kot. Kang Indah, what happened Ibu Min sound ni? Saya nak baca question for her. Pak Willy, you can to copy my question, the question I will to read to Miss Yasmin, right?
What question?
I will to read right now. Okay, from Andy. The student, I think, nickname Andy. Right now, in Indonesia Parliament, majority of political party create coalition with President Jokowi based off PDIP party. So there is not balancing power. Really single majority coalition. We look President Jokowi easy to change policy regard national budget APBN for speed train and IKN Nusantara new capital city. Is this phenomena not is this the phenomena not example of abuse of power? This is the question. Okay, the second question. No, the second question from Ria. I will to read all the question, right? Ria, the question from Ria. Relation your sample of cases. We look Mr. Muldoko, quote unquote, attack Party Democrat and judicial review of Mahkamah Agung final decision. As the chairman of President's staff officer, are you look his move relation abuse of power? Why President Jokowi take silent position where he know that is not wisdom action? Wah, ini berat nih pertanyaan ini. Okay, the first speaker for the answer right now.
I think Miss Yasmin is already back.
Miss
Yasmin.
Hope he copy the question, but I will to read more if she want. But right now we go to answer the first speaker first. Okay, and Nazim, you can to answer two questions around. Yeah, Bu Min, I will to read the question for you.
Yeah, my internet is trouble on my laptop, so okay, I use my phone right now.
I will read more, but after the first speaker answer the question for him, Mr. Nazim.
Okay,
please.
Okay, Prof.
Thank you, Pak. First question, is Malaysia unstable right now, since Malaysia do not have I'm assuming it's 2/3 majority. That's how I understood the question.
The
Well,
second majority mean is many parliament member, but right now only 100 and what 20 each or what number of the parliament coalition of government right now.
I say,
Not
okay.
single majority.
I say, okay. You
Mm.
see, well, some people will always, there are some people who feel uneasy that the ruling political government, the ruling political power of the day in Malaysia, they don't control 2/3 majority of seats in parliament, you know what, yeah. But when you trace it quite to a number of years already, the Barisan Nasional, for example, had already lost 2/3 majority even way back then. I mean, post Patla, I think they no longer enjoy 2/3 majority. Is that good or bad? Maybe that is bad for the ruling political power, that you can't just bulldoze any laws that you want in parliament. Maybe that is a good thing for us, because now you have to sit up and prove yourselves, not to among each other, among you, but prove to us whether you're capable in governing this country, whether you're mature enough to cooperate with each other, that the most important thing that you should look at is the interest of the people. Unfortunately, politicians being politicians, what we have been seeing is that while they've lost, they no longer control 2/3 majority. Politicians being politicians will always be politicians, will always be political, instead of really looking into what are the actually important areas which they need to cover as part of the governance. So is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It depends who you're asking. If you're asking me, I will say, yeah, it's a good thing that they don't have absolute majority or 2/3 majority. If you're asking the politicians, some of them will probably say, oh no, we cannot do anything and so on. Yeah, I mean, no, if the shoe fits, wear it. Second question is there lack of enforcement in Malaysia since Najib Razak is the first and last PM being imprisoned? Well, I hope not. I surely hope that Najib Razak is not the first and last PM being imprisoned in Malaysia. I hope that for any other prime ministers, either the past prime ministers or the future prime ministers, where there are any cases against them, if enough evidence is proven against any of them, yep, they'll be in prison. I hope that this is not the first time. I hope this will not be the last time. Is there lack of enforcement in Malaysia? I don't know. Because questions on policy and how on the priorities on action to be taken in corruption cases, I really have no say to that, because whatever happens in Suruhanjaya Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia, we mere mortals, we don't know. We know nothing about it. So yeah, that's hopefully.
Okay, not many lecturer will be to talk about this sensitivity case, but Mr. Nazim is okay, right? No problem, because Malaysia go to reformation like Indonesia right now. Okay, Bukmin, I will to repeat the question for you, because before it I have to read, but you are not available in the Zoom. Okay, right now I will to read more, right? Ibu Nin, from the student, I think. The first from Andy, very interesting and good sharing, Dr. Nin Yasmin. I get the experience from your sharing. Okay, Andy, right now in Indonesia, parliaments, majority of political party create coalition with President Jokowi based of PDIP. So there is not balancing powers, really single power majority collection, single majority coalition. Sorry. We look President Jokowi easy to change policy regard national budget IPBN for speed train and IKN Nusantara new capital city. Is this phenomenon, not example of abuse of power. What do you think? This is the first question. And the second question from Ria. Relation your many sample of cases of law, we look Mr. Muldoko, quote unquote, attack Party Democrat and judicial review of Mahkamah Agung final decision as the chairman of president staff officer. You look his move relation abuse of power. Why President Jokowi take silent position where he know that is not wisdom action? This is the two question from many question in my email. Usually only take two question because limited time, and time is your Miss Yasmin for answer around 5 to 6 minutes, please. Your son right now not available. You
Oh,
can
sorry,
to
sorry.
okay.
Okay, sorry, sir. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Thank you so much for the question. So I will answer about the first question. The first question is about the President Jokowi is make a decision about the APBN and also IKN atau Ibu Kota Nusantara. So this is abuse power or no? So in my opinion, this is not abuse power because when the President Jokowi make a decision about, for example, the budgets of APBN, for example, if more than 400 billion to IKN or the other example. So President Jokowi is not a make decision by himself, but it's also the make decision with doing a meeting with DPR or the parliament. So if the parliament is the majority and the voting is more than 2 and 3, the voting is, I mean, the majority is more than 60%. So the president will take the decision. So I think this is not about this is not abuse power because it's not a pure 100% decision of President Jokowi.
That is the core coalition, because the single majority coalition must be to single power. There is the absolute power mostly to absolute corruption. What do you think? Right now,
So the question
President Jokowi is get absolute power in parliament because many coalition of party, the core of coalition about it. What do you all think?
Yeah, it's because the democratic in Indonesia, Prof. Because in Indonesia we agree that we agree that is we choose the president, so it's a president has the rights to do that, he has the right to do that, so it's not the abuse power because we are the democratic policy like that. And the second question is also about Muldoko is attack the chairman of the judicial review of Mahkamah Constitution. It's also for me.
Mahkamah Agung about the
Mahkamah
Democrat.
Agung. Yeah. Sorry, Mahkamah Agung. So, it is also more about the ethic code than the abuse power because the abuse power is like use the authority to use or to manipulate something, but this is about the attacking judicial review, so it's not abuse power too, but it's more than like ethic code. This is my opinion, Prof. Thank you.
Wow. I think this is the famous and favorite lecturer in campus Esa Unggul and UITM Faculty of Law because the lecturer is very strong as the speaker. Okay, Mr. Willie, are you will to comment something, please? If you want to share something, comment.
Miss Yasmin
Hi.
already answered all the questions. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Willie.
Hello, Miss Yasmin.
Yeah.
Okay. There is the question in the chat box from an Ikmal. I think for and Nazim or Bu Yasmin, you can to answer if you want. The question from my friend too, Dr. Ikmal from Faculty of Law UITM in the chat box. And Nazim, you want to respond the question from your friend too, please. Yeah.
This is a question for my colleague, Dr. Iqmal. Dr. Iqmal is a specialist on rights of disabled under the Constitution in Malaysia. I mean, he is the specialist and the authority on that. So he asked this question on feudalism. Feudalism is, for example, how we understand it means you have no right against the government or the leaders. Do whatever they tell you to do, and you have no right to object to them. That's feudalism. You have to know your place in the system. Whatever you are, whatever status that you enjoy, whatever property that you have, whatever opportunities that you have, these are decided by the people above you, and these are supposed to be people who are better than you. Just accept it as it is. Don't rebel against that. That's feudalism. Some people, then there are some academics in Malaysia who believe that, no, that's not what feudalism is. And then these people say, well, a long time ago, feudalism was a good thing. Feudalism should not be seen as an evil thing. And in fact, feudalism is just some kind of a matter of relationship with each other. Well, our answer has always been, well, words are not just created. Words also have to be looked at the context, how they grow. So maybe a long time ago, feudalism meant something else. Maybe a long time ago, hundreds of years ago, feudalism only meant relationships with each other, kekerabatan, for example. But right now, conventionally, commonly, feudalism is not accepted as a good thing. Feudalism is looked into from the lens of abuse of power, for example, where people people above you will expect unquestioning obedience from you. Here is where we draw the line. We say no, we should not accept, we should not even tolerate feudalism, not even in public universities. Thank you, Iqmal.
Yeah. I invite Iqmal to comment a few of minutes, tapi dia tak tahulah dia boleh buat atau tidak. Okay. Let's we look the second refreshing song before the closing remark, because this forum must be to enjoy and fun. Indah Gumilang, you ready, please?
Thank you, Pak Riza. I think we share certain commonalities and similarities with Indonesia regarding abuse of power, for example. I mean, enough outrage and protestations against cases of abuse of power, especially when it comes from those in positions of power. I think we share that. But what happens right now is that it seems that Indonesia, more information is shared across the board regarding cases that are handled by KPK as compared to cases handled by SPRM in Malaysia. Maybe there is a good policy reason for this, because legal action would always operate secretly for tactical and strategic reasons. We don't know, but yeah, the thing that we have to fight most in both of these countries is always about has always been about abuses of power, which always arise from how do people see themselves when they're holding when they are in positions of power. Is it their absolute right, or are they holding those powers on benefit of trust, atas dasar amanah for the rest of the people? That has always been the issue in both. I love to see that we share the same commonalities. Thank you.
Okay, but for your information, the another side information, KPK of Indonesia right now kena gembos. You know gembos. Jadi powernya sudah dikurangkan oleh political abuse of. Tak tahulah Ibu Yasmin berpandangan yang sama apa tidak. You closing remark right now. Okay, Ibu. You the closing remark.
Okay, sir. So thank you for this webinar about the law enforcement and abuse power. So I think that we have to do the really, the law enforcement about the abuse power. So as a citizen, we also not regret about the government, because it's not only make a loss for the country but also for the citizen. Okay, thank you, Professor. That's it from me.
Okay, you are welcome, Mr. Willie. Are you want to share something? A few minutes, if you want.
I'm okay. Thank you, Mr.